1470 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 25 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. I got a connection between the last interview and this interview. The last interview, Mac was born and raised in Ocala, and Becky Blalock is on the phone, and she's got a relative, I can't remember who she said, in the village. So her dad? Okay, We'll find out all about this. Now, that was kind of an awkward introduction. Becky Blalock is on the phone. She's the recipient of numerous awards for her work on behalf of women's initiatives. She's a partner with the Advisory Capital. She's a strategic consultant, and her book is called Dare, Straight Talk on Confidence, Courage, and Career for Women in Charge. Let's find out what this is about from Becky herself. Good morning, Becky.
Good morning, Larry.
Where are you?
Hey, Robin.
Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Atlanta, Georgia.
Atlanta. All right. Well, thank you for calling in to be on our show today. Tell me about the book. Is the book for Robin?
Well, the book is really for anybody who wants to be a better leader, but it's targeted to women like Robin who are successful in their career and who want to continue to achieve even greater things in their career. So try to encourage women to believe more in themselves and be more confident and go for those really big opportunities when they come along.
Well, good for you. I'm an observer of human beings, and I had a sister. My sister has passed away, but I think my sister was somebody who had so much potential, but just, because she was a woman, I don't know, maybe she just didn't believe in herself. It's never going to be clear to me, but I think you're right on target. I think we, as a society, have fallen short on that, but we're making progress. So, and your book is contributing to that progress.
Absolutely. If you look at the number of women who've come into the workforce since I graduated from college, they've contributed 25% to the gross domestic product of our country. And when I first came into the workforce, the company I worked for had no female officers. By the time I left, there were 20%. Now, that's a far cry from the 50% that there probably should be down the road. But I'm hoping my book can help close some of those gaps and encourage more women to reach for those senior positions in corporate America.
And in your book, you really, really stress the point that the woman has to be herself. She can't be somebody else, and she can't be manipulative. She has to just be genuine in what she does.
Absolutely. That's why the first chapter of my book is dedicated to figuring out what it is that you want and putting together a plan and writing it down. As I was coming up, people used to say, write down what it is you want. And I wasn't very disciplined about that. And it wasn't until later in my career that I learned that something like 30 to 60% of our brain function is tied to vision. And if you write something down and you look at it and you believe in it, you're a whole lot more likely to make it happen. So you got to really begin with what it is that you want. Being in the C-suite is not for all men, and it's not for all women. But if you want it, all the barriers now have been broken down. There are virtually no glass ceilings that haven't been at least cracked. And it's ready for the next generation to come through. But one of the things that women do need, number one, they're going to have to be more confident and believe in themselves. And that's why mentorship is so important. I think it's easy to be courageous if you have somebody behind you cheering you on and helping you. And there haven't been enough women in senior positions or men in senior positions that were reaching back and pulling up this next generation of female leader.
Well, Larry's very good at that. He always supports everyone. Whoever comes into the studio, if they sit and talk with him, he will be sure to always support them and find out what they want and try to guide them in some kind of a direction.
I appreciate that. So does the information apply to both men and women? And I guess a part B to that question would be, would a woman with the same information have a little bit of a disadvantage because it's a man's world?
Well, I do think women are a little bit of a disadvantage because they're not part of the natural network that happens in the corporate world. A lot of women don't play golf. They're not part of the good old boy group that goes to lunch. And so I've had a number of men actually approach me and say, what can I do to make the work environment better for my women? And I have cautioned them and said, you need to make sure you're giving equal face time to your women. If they're not going to play golf or if they're not going to lunch with you, then you need to find a special project that you work on with them. Because there are a lot of communications that happen informally in corporations and obviously in radio stations too. And there are not enough people like you out there, Larry, that are aware of this and reaching out to help the next generation of women be successful.
I've had quite a few lady bosses in my time, and I want to remember one in particular who was new at being in a managerial position, and I worked with her for a very long time. And what I noticed is that in the beginning, she was all textbook. She was all about the book. And I remember thinking, oh, no, a lady boss is always by the book. A man boss will bend the rules a little bit. But then later on, I noticed that she bent the rules too. But I understood it. I thought, you know what it is? She's so concerned because she's under a microscope right now because she's got a boss too.
Right.
And so she had to be, she had to mind her P's and Q's. And then eventually, after she had been there for a while, then she kind of was a little bit more relaxed on some things that maybe weren't exactly in the book, but made more sense than what the book was describing, if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense to me because as somebody who was the first woman to hold many of the jobs that I held in corporate America, you are held to a different standard when you're the first one. People are scrutinizing everything you do, and you're held to a much higher standard. You get criticized if you're not doing things absolutely perfect. But the good thing is, they're watching. So everything you do gets noticed. And if you do a really good job, you've got a chance to stand out. But there is a tremendous amount of stress that comes with knowing that everything you do is being scrutinized. And it's easier to withstand that if you have mentors and coaches to back you up.
And you have to have that reciprocity of respect. You can't think you're all that and everybody else is beneath you.
Absolutely, absolutely. The people that are going to be most successful in the future are the ones who are collaborative. Authoritative leadership is going to be dead. Things are changing too much. Nobody can keep up with everything. That's why you got to surround yourself with a bunch of very talented people who operate as a team and who are very good about reaching out and supporting each other and keeping everybody on the same path.
Does the, how do I ask this question without seeming inappropriate, but does the sexual attraction that happens between men and women, do the dynamics of that play a different role when the woman is in charge as opposed to when the man is in charge?
I couldn't tell you that. They do say that sexual harassment is on the rise with men. If you look at the sexual harassment cases that were filed last year, 16% of them were filed by men. But half of those were men being harassed by other men.
Oh, really?
So,
wow.
Oh,
yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay,
So,
well.
I don't know that the dynamic changes. I mean, people are human beings, but I always coach people, and I say, if you are looking to be unethical in the workplace, then you're putting your job at risk.
I didn't mean to step over that line and be unethical. I just mean when there's a natural attraction. Let's say you're a single woman. You happen to be attractive. I'm looking at your picture. You're very attractive, by the way.
Well, thank you.
Look at that picture, Robin. You see that?
I know. She's gorgeous.
All right. So if you're my boss and I'm a single guy, I might be in your office a lot. And I'm not going to be inappropriate, but you'll just see me a lot. Now, so I don't know. Does it happen in reverse? Does a handsome male boss get a lot of the female employees coming in? Would you like some coffee?
I would think so.
I just got coffee from Susan. Thank you. All right.
That's one thing about you also is that you like to keep levity in the conversation. It can't be just all dull and boring. You have to have that outlet.
Yeah. Fortunately, I'm married to my college sweetheart, so I haven't had to worry about a whole lot of that.
What about the fake it till you make it idea. A lot of people do this. They'll pretend they know something and then just kind of roll with it and then kind of stumble around until they actually really know something. It works. It works.
It does work, and it's a very important part of being successful. And men are much better at it than women are. There's this phenomenon, and I write about it in the book, called the imposter syndrome, where women in particular, or anybody who's a minority in a group, struggles a little more with accepting the fact that they've been successful and really embracing that. They feel like they're a fake. And a lot of people suffer with this. A lot of very famous people. Sheryl Sandberg also writes about it in her book. She's the chief operating officer of Facebook. And so what you have to do is be much better about embracing the fact that you have had success. Not be afraid to get out of your comfort zone. Because, we all live in these worlds where we feel safe, we feel valued, we feel appreciated. And it's hard to step outside of that. But it's stepping outside of that that's absolutely necessary to grow your leadership skills to get to the next level. And we so overestimate the consequences of failure. But if you're not stretching yourself constantly outside of that comfort zone, it begins to shrink.
And you have to be true to yourself, because I've known some women that have applied for jobs. They weren't interested really in the position they were applying for, but they thought once they get their foot in the door of the company, they can sort of work their way into something that they really felt they should do. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, I think it depends. I mean, it's one thing to get your foot in the door with a company that has a lot of growth potential. And if the company's really expanding, then there's probably going to be some opportunities. But I caution a lot of people to do your homework on the company before you go to work there, and make sure that it's a company that's profitable and looks like they're going to grow. Because if they're growing, then there's going to be a lot of opportunities. If not, you may be taking that job thinking you're going to do something else, and that nothing else may come along. The other thing is, I do tell people that it's important to choose your boss. As much as you choose your next job, put a lot of thought into who that next boss is. Even if it's your ideal job, if it's somebody who is not a great leader, who, does not promote their people, I'd think twice before I went into a job like that. I'd rather be in a job that may not be my ideal, but has a boss who is a mentor and a great coach, and people on that person's team end up being very successful.
Becky Blalock is our guest. She's up in Atlanta. Her book is called Dare, Straight Talk on Confidence, Courage, and Career for Women in Charge. I want to ask you something, Becky, about climbing that corporate ladder, because there are two ways to do it. One is to start at the bottom and keep proving yourself and keep applying for the next position and climbing the ladder right where you are. The other one is to recognize that you may never be noticed for anything more than you already are. And maybe the people above you in your own corporation won't promote you, and so therefore you bounce back and forth between similar companies. It happens in radio a lot, Mm-hmm. If you want to do whatever the top job is in radio, I don't know what it would be.
Yeah.
But you start out playing commercials in the middle of the night, and maybe nobody ever looks at you as more than the able to do that. So you get a job at another radio station. You say, I had this night shift. I'd like to do the afternoon shift on your show or whatever on your station. And it's kind of a way of climbing the corporate ladder. I'm guessing it applies the same for women and men, right?
Absolutely. I tell people, if you feel like you're stuck, then, nobody is more responsible for changing that than you are. You can't sit back and think that your boss is their responsibility to get you promoted. You need to get out there and have some conversations with people and let them know you're interested in moving up. And if the company's not responsible for that, then go out to the marketplace and look, and that'll validate your worth. Either there'll be other opportunities out there, or it'll convince you that maybe you should be happy staying where you are. But your career is far too important to entrust that to somebody else to manage.
I don't know if this is true, but common belief is that women have a better support network among themselves. At least in the personal world. If you are in your business world doing something that you consider risky, that if you succeed, it's going to be great, but there's a potential that you could fail. And you mentioned earlier, plus in the book, of course, you write about dare to fail. And so, let's say you do fail. as opposed to if a man fails? Do women have more of a, like, do you have more friends who will sit around and say, oh, don't worry about it, you'll do better next time? Or is that across the board the same for men as it is for women?
I think it depends on the person. Women do tend to be more collaborative. I'll just give you this example. When women get older, they go on trips together. Men have to remarry to go on trips. And women tend to hang out with each other. I mean, that's that girlfriend network's pretty strong. There haven't always been a lot of women in the corporate world that could bond together and support each other. But one of the things I tell women is that we have a lot more power than we think. If you look at who voted in the last election, 53% of the people that voted were women. And if we just pull together a little better, there's no telling what we could do. One of the things that's interesting, I've interviewed a lot of men about my book, and I've said, if you could change one thing about women in corporate America, what would it be? And they said, quit taking things so personally. That I had numerous men say they were reluctant to give women feedback because they'd get upset about it and not forget about it.
Oh, there you go.
And I do
I agree.
think that we need to be a little more open to feedback and embracing that feedback and really being thankful if somebody has the courage to tell you there's something that you need to work on. Because only people that really care about you will give you that feedback.
That is really true. And constructive feedback as opposed to somebody who's just simply jealous or something like that. Mm-hmm. Now, here's something I've observed. I can leave whatever it is that's bothering me at work. I can walk out the door and be ready for my own personal life. Women seem to, and I'm not trying to generalize here, but I am, seem to take it with them. They go home, they're still worried about it. I don't worry about it until I go back to work. Yeah.
Absolutely. Let me just say, there is a lot of new brain research out there, and there's something called a SPECT scan, which actually looks at blood flow and processing in the brain versus a PET scan and an MRI, which look at the anatomy of the brain. And they have thousands of these scans they've done of men and women, and they can actually show you that men are much better at cutting things off. I mean, they can zone out and totally relax. Women continue to process and worry and reflect about things, and that's good and bad. The good thing about it is a woman will walk into a room and she's going to notice 1,000 things that a man never sees. Mm-hmm. And the bad part about that, though, is she'll continue to process that and think about that and worry. And most men don't.
Well, that's true.
And a woman will continue to listen to you even if she's bored. A man is only going to listen to you a short period of time, and then he's going to cut you off. So one of the things I tell women is be very succinct about the way you deliver your message. Mm-hmm. We tend to use both sides of our brain when we communicate, and we use a lot more words, and sometimes we'll lose men in the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes I draw things.
And we are much more concerned about being liked than men are. Men want to be liked, too, but they're not nearly as obsessed with it as women are.
Well, that is true. Oh, boy, that is true. And sometimes I think it's good to actually be familiar with being unliked. because it enables you to do things that might cause you to be unliked, but it might be for the better of everybody, I think, sometimes.
Yeah.
Right. I thought it was interesting. I interviewed 28 women who are very successful, and they're at the C level in my book, and many of them cited that their biggest mistake was that they did not fire somebody quick enough. I do think women tend to try to bend over backwards and give somebody every chance in the world. Yeah. But what they talked about is the fact that it almost brought their whole team down because they didn't deal with the performance issue as quickly as they should have.
Oh, that's really true.
So while women take their work home with them, and it affects their personal life, I think they don't. Well, you correct me if I'm wrong. Well, no, let me just change where I wanted to ask here. Do you think so? If there's a conclusion here that men and women are different, I guess that's kind of been the conclusion since day one. But do you think the conclusion is to change or to just embrace the differences and recognize the differences, so that if I'm dealing with a woman, I got to be slightly different than if I am with a man?
Well, first of all, I want to be very clear about the fact that I get very concerned when they say, well, men are from Mars and women are from Venus, because truth of the matter is what the data says is that 1 in 5 women thinks more like a man and 1 in 7 men thinks more like a woman. But what I think you should be aware of is that there are tendencies, and that being aware of those tendencies is what's important. And if you have a team, you're probably going to want one of each on your team.
I would say, yeah.
Because, the woman is going to notice all these things that happen in the room. She's going to bring that to the table in negotiations, things that a man will never see. And the man's going to be much more focused about how things get approached. So I would want one of each on my team.
Makes sense. So as a country, we should have a male and a female president. We should have a dual presidency.
There you go.
Well, we sort of have that anyway, don't we? I mean, doesn't the first lady often have a very influential role on the country?
Yeah, she does.
That really has started to happen in recent years. You're seeing more influence from the First Lady.
Mm-hmm. And now, how about family? Because women can't be so wrapped up in themselves and their career that they put their family second.
Right, and that's why I tell people, you need to figure out what it is that you want, because these senior jobs will keep you from having everything you want, and it's all about setting priorities. If you want to be in the C-suite, then you're not going to be able to be there for every single ball game. One of the stories that I share is that early in my career, I felt a tremendous amount of guilt to be working and being away from my daughter, and somebody gave me this advice. They said, go home and interview her and ask her what's important to her. You might be surprised what you learn. And I was.
Oh, wow.
I thought that, I felt bad that I couldn't drive her to school because I had to be at work at 7 o'clock in the morning. And as it turns out, she could have cared less about that. She had a cute babysitter that drove her to school every day. She loved the babysitter. What was really, really important to her was that when it was my turn to read the book in the classroom, that I was there and I was a cool mom and brought cupcakes and made a big deal out of her in that classroom. So let me tell you, I made that my number one priority when it was my turn to read the book. And she and I talked about it and planned it out a week ahead of time. And my daughter's 23 and very successful. She's in her second year of pharmacy school now. And I ask her a lot, do you remember me not being there for things? And she says, no. She said, I really don't. She said, I remember the things that were really important to me. You were always there for those.
Wow.
So I tell people, you may think that you need to be there for everything in your child's life, but you don't. It's actually good for them. Because my daughter's the most fiercely independent person you could ever want to meet, and it's because I didn't do everything for her when she was growing up. She had to do a lot of things for herself.
I can relate to what you're saying. As a man, I was a single dad when my son was little, and I was offered a morning shift like I do now, the morning radio show. I was offered that twice or 3 times when my son was younger. And I turned him down. I turned it down simply because it would mean me getting up really early, leaving the house really early. And, of course, if I left really early, he couldn't even have been there because there's no way I could have had a child in my home. And how would he have gotten ready for school? So I always took the other jobs that, maybe paid less, but it enabled me to be home.
Yeah.
Well, and if that's what made you in your mind successful, then that was absolutely the right choice for you at the time. And I think over time, if you are doing what makes you happy and what's important to you, then you're going to end up being successful.
Yeah. So in other words, it's not necessarily that was for me. I think I did that for me more than for him. I wanted to be there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it is definitely an issue, and parenting is part of the differences, I guess, between the sexes and the issues that we deal with as men and women. This book is pretty much directed at women. Dare is the title of the book. It is this your first book, Becky?
This is my first book.
Okay,
yes,
I thought I read that somewhere. I have a copy of the book, Dare, Straight Talk on Confidence, Courage, and Career for Women in Charge. It is jam-packed filled with things that we haven't even begun to cover. So if you would like the copy I have, call me, and I'll be glad to put your name on it and leave it here for you at the station. The rest of us have to go buy it. Becky, do you have a website you want to tell us about?
Yes, you can go to BeckyBlalock.com. And I have a confidence quiz where you can go online and find out how confident you are. There's a checklist of things that you can do because I believe that confidence is a grown skill. Just like leadership and public speaking, it's all about getting out there and practicing and making yourself more confident.
Right.
And so I provide a lot of tips for how to do that. And there's also the first chapter of the book is online, so it'll give you a little snippet of what's in there, so hopefully you'll want to buy it.
All right, excellent.
And you have to keep your emotions about you, too, because you can't turn into a machine. You have to be real to yourself. And if there's a time you want to cry, you should just do it. That's what you stress.
Absolutely. You know, having been in a senior position, I will tell you, I managed more men than I did women because that's who was in my company. I've had a lot more men come in my office and cry than women.
I'd come in there, too.
That is a myth that only women cry. Now, I will say this, that the higher up the corporate ladder you go, the more you do need to keep your emotions in check. But, you know, one time I had 3 employees on my team who got killed, and I was visibly emotional about that.
Yeah.
And the feedback I got from people was good. She really cares about us.
Of course. My goodness, yeah.
There's always a place for emotion. But what you don't want to do is get all bent out of shape about something, because when you do, that rolls downhill with people on your team.
Okay, Becky, thank you for being on the air. Robin makes it easy. If you want to go to Becky's website, it's BeckyBlalock.com. But what I mean by Robin makes it easy, she has Becky's website on our website. So go to WOCA.com, click on the AM Ocala Live link, and then the schedule, and you'll see Becky's name at the 9:35 slot and her website. And I'm guessing the book is available at all the other places you normally get books. Am I right?
Absolutely. It's on Amazon. It's one of the best places to get it.
All right. Well, thank
you, Larry, for all you do for women. And Robin, I enjoyed being with you, too.
Thank you. Me too, Becky. You're a role model.
Robin is a lot for men, too, by the way. She took a moment to compliment me. I'm not so sure why. All right, Becky, thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
We'll take a break and be right back.
Thank you so much, Becky. You're certainly doing everybody a service with your
Good credits, bad credits. It's none of our business because we're not an auto dealer. We're not a bank. We're not your mother. We're OcalaForSale.com. Marion County's marketplace for cars, trucks, and SUVs. We've got thousands of sellers standing by to take your call. No middleman. But hurry, don't walk, don't run. Just sit down and log on to OcalaForSale.com. Prices and inventory change daily. Offer does not include dealer upcharge. Undercutting, rust proofing, factory surcharge, or delivery fee. See website for details.
Phoenix Promotional Solutions, your company supplier of banners, digital decals, yard signs, and magnetic signs. Where you give them approved artwork by noon, the next day by 4 p.m., you pick up your banners, digital decals, yard signs, and magnetic signs. Phoenix Promotional Solutions, 368-2404. That's 368-2404. Don't forget, they do vehicle wraps also. Phoenix Promotional Solutions, 368-2404.
Hi, I'm Yvette, and I'm here to tell you a few things about ABC Frederick's Appliance. They sell not only new, but used guaranteed appliances. When you call ABC Frederick's Appliance, they will provide service on what they sell and any appliances that you own. ABC Frederick's Appliance is located in Bellevue, right over the railroad tracks. Call 352-629-5181. That's 352-629-5181. That's 352-629-5181. ABC Frederick's Appliance.
Ugh, what wrong? Ugh, need wood for fire.
Ugh, I go get. Ugh, I got wood for fire.
Ugh, what takes so long?
Had to use restroom. Someone not refill toilet paper.
Ugh, my bad. You wash hands?
Ugh, of course. Ugh, what caveman you take me for?
You know, Dan, people who save money by switching to Mike Scott Plumbing sure are happy.
Well, Brittany, how happy are they?
Happier than a caveman with indoor plumbing.
Yep. Get happy. Get Mike Scott Plumbing. If water runs through it, we do it. 237-2888.
The following message is brought to you by the Florida Division of Emergency Management, the Florida Association of Broadcasters, and this radio station.
This hurricane season, the most important thing you can do for your family and your business is to develop a hurricane preparedness plan. Florida's Division of Emergency Management's website, floridadisaster.org, now has a planning tool that will help you come up with your plan. All it takes is a few minutes to get a plan to better protect your family and your business when a hurricane threatens. Get a plan. Get yours at floridadisaster.org.
Hi, I'm Leah Caruso with Strive Rehabilitation, inviting you to join me Thursday at 11 a.m. for Health Matters. Ocala Health and Strive have teamed up to bring you the latest information on good health services available to you right here at home. This vital information will help you make informed decisions about your health. So don't forget to join me here at 11 a.m. Thursday. It's news you can use from Ocala Health, Strive, and your friends here at WOCA.
Alice? Yes, George. George, you're all wet.
I went to Devon Self-Storage and put back my fishing gear.
Okay. You know Devon Self-Storage is open early and you had all day to bring your fishing gear back. And they're right across from Hobby Lobby.
I know. I have my own code to get into Devon Self-Storage. And their phone number, too, is 873-0777.
So why did you wait till it started raining?
I didn't. I slipped getting the boat out of the water.
Boat?
Bye!
George?
Time again for the Silver Springs Lions Train Show, November 16th and 17th at the National Guard Armory, 900 Southwest 20th Street in Ocala. Times are 9 to 4 on Saturday, 10 to 3 on Sunday. $4 admission for adults, children 12 and under, free with a paying adult. You bring in a can of food or a non-perishable item, it's $1 off admission. Come join us for operating train layouts, new and old trains, good food, and just a lot of fun. See you at the show.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.